Hey, Sean.
Good morning.
How are you? Happy
Um,
Monday, I think.
Monday, yes, absolutely. How are you?
I'm good. How was your weekend?
It was lovely, yeah, just some nice time with the family. Just a
Yeah,
lazy weekend. I think it was good to not have anything booked in for the first time in a while.
nice. And you've been out. You got a tan from the last time we spoke.
Just my wife giving me jobs in the garden. I think that's what it is, just hard labour. I'm no way in the garden. That's also lucky with a bit of sunshine, but nothing, no sun tanning or bathing.
No, not quite.
Relaxing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we
Good.
have more restrictions lift, so we're all pretty pumped. Down here, it's been a long 10 months, so we're all kind of like rushing out and trying to enjoy the sunshine when we can. Now, having said that, today it's raining cats and dogs, so
Yeah,
it's very Melbourne.
yeah.
Well, cool. Ready to roll?
Give it a go. Do you want to?
It's a bit like that in 2020, isn't it? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, you can't go much worse. So
Let's go. So, Sean, you've been at Ben & Jerry's now for nearly 3 years. Is that right?
that's right. Yeah.
As the National Retail Manager for ANZ. But prior to that, you've got about 12 years retail management experience, like codifying some world-class like customer experiences for brands like Virgin, Valentine Group, and Lucozade. Is that correct? You've been managing teams across Asia, UK, and Australia. So just wondering, like, how did you come to choose a career in retail management? I mean, is it something you dreamt about as a little boy, or did you kind of fall into it?
Yeah, more wasn't quite by design, but I think you just when you're growing through, you find where you can have the biggest impact. So when I was younger, I was playing rugby. All I cared about was playing rugby. And then when you lose your chance to play rugby, you've got to figure your life out from there, and you understand how people work, and where some opportunities are and where you can influence the best. And getting into fitness after rugby, clearly that was an easy option to go, but you suddenly find yourself bottom of the ladder, and from being talked about on a daily basis in where you could be going to, suddenly you're in amongst it with everybody else. So it really forces you to learn a bit more about you and your impact on others, and how others, where they've come from and what they've done, and how we can grow. And in retail, you've got such a wide, diverse range of backgrounds. Everybody's got a different story to tell. Generally, it's not as privileged. So people are there fighting hard and wanting to make change for themselves, for their family, for the people around them, for the environment that they're in. And that's pretty exciting. And I always found an opportunity to align with people. There's lots of negatives in there where people are struggling, and it makes it really difficult. But if you find the right people, find the right opportunities, you align to them, they can go so much further. We're talking miles. Or sometimes you meet people and they've got centimeters of growth opportunity, and the other people you've got miles. And when you're really starting at a baseline, and people are just passionate, you talk to some of my scoopers in the stores now, and you just light a little bit of a fire underneath them, and they'll go to war. They want to change the world. They just don't understand how, and sometimes they've not been given the opportunity or the framework and how to do that. And it's really exciting that they can be sponges that you can really help out, and you can give a little bit to, and it goes a long way. So I think that's what I really do love about this. It doesn't come easy, but I do like the impact you can have on others.
Yeah, because retail really is the coalface, isn't it? Especially like right now, it's never been more important. Because I remember, because my background is ex-advertising, and I worked on Mars for over a decade, on Snickers and a lot of the chocolate brands and the pet care brands. And what I found was really helpful when I was bringing new people into my team is actually getting them to spend time with the field managers and the sales managers, actually going out to all the stores, watching how they get stocked, how they talk to the individual franchise owners and stuff like that, because it really gave us, I guess, a humility and a sense check for the ideas that we were proposing, like for consumer promotions and things like that. At times, we got a little bit carried away and was like, we're going to launch a hippopotamus, and then we'll get the customer to do this, and this. And then when you actually see what they've got to go through every single day to convince each store owner to participate in the promotion, you really start to simplify and develop things that actually are going to make a difference to them and help them feel good about doing their job too, and not be embarrassed about walking in this pansy advertising idea that may or may not sell product.
Yeah, that's the key. I think it's just a reality check. It was actually, I was at the Unilever head office last week, and Nikki Sparshaw, our CEO for ANZ, came out, and she's got a good background in retail, having been the CEO for T2.
Mm-hmm.
Introducing her to the team, she's like, cool, so you guys really do know what's going on. You are the coalface. So when we say we're going to do this, it's not reality. You can challenge back and push back. And it really does mean a lot for them to know that their voice can be heard. And when you can amplify what it means at the front of house, depending on what you're doing in the back of house, it changes everything in how you approach the world. So it's exciting. You know, you can look at sales numbers and people can look at, driving the bottom line value, but really, if you look at the individual person that has gone from A, not just to B to C, but through to, X, Y, and Z, that's pretty cool. And if you teach that person at the front of house how to focus on change and opportunities in the back of house, they can really see career growth as well.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense when you say that, coming from a rugby or a sporting background, that you'd like to be in and amongst it. Because it's literally a point of conversion, right? Because I think, sometimes at a strategic level, we can get stuck up in ivory towers and kind of pretty graphs and diagrams and stuff like that. So I totally get why you went into retail. So I think, taking that on board is sort of like where you've come from and liking to be in the center of things and seeing how things actually convert, like the theory converts into reality. What else is there about you, I guess, as a person that, may not be immediately obvious? When people first meet you, like, are you an avid stamp collector? Do you?
Nothing that exciting, I'm afraid. Look, I'm just an everyday guy that's worked really, really hard. I think that's the only thing I can really put on my CV is I've worked hard for the people around me, and my people around me have helped me out. But I've tried to play rugby, and my body couldn't stand. Mine was paying checks, my body couldn't pay. And then you move through, and I've got a wonderful wife and 2 boys that brought us to Australia. So I was really keen on going anywhere where the right work was, with the right companies.
Yeah.
And for a company like Virgin was brilliant, really people focused, driving forward, trying to do the right thing by the communities, and get into several different territory positions with them. And then the chance to open up into Asia was brilliant. Loved that, moving across to Singapore and helping to open Singapore and Thailand, and just with the support of the Australia team. And that's what really gave me an understanding again of different cultures. And when I look back, I think I would have looked back initially as being an army brat. My dad was in the army, and moving around every couple of years and constantly making a best friend and then losing them and then another best friend, and just trying to, you try to live a life slightly differently. And you can look back with negativity on that. But actually that set me up to be able to integrate well in different cultures, and understand change quite well. And so going out to Singapore and really understanding a very different culture, and then that set me up then for a move to Australia after that as well. So I think, going where the job has gone and understanding people and trying to get the best out of the scenario, that's pretty much who I am with my hard work mentality.
Well, kind of, it should be the only way that we live, right? Is to follow your values and then find the organisation that matches it as well.
Yeah, but you can't always do it, and I found that really hard when I left Virgin. My wife was in Australia, or my girlfriend at the time was in Australia, and I was in Singapore, and we decided to go traveling and then go back to London. So I had to start afresh. And it's great when you've got the sweet spot of the perfect culture or a great culture, or people focused, purpose and values that you align to. And then sometimes it's not there, and you can drop your guard and not work any harder. You've got to understand how you can influence in the right way without being negative, and you've got to understand what you can change and the limitations, and put yourself still in that learning phase of, okay, people are thinking this way. Why is that? Can I adapt it? Can I change it? Is it me that needs to change? You can't always be in that sweet spot, but when you are, like I feel I am now with a company I really align to with Ben & Jerry's, that's when you can have the biggest impact.
Yeah, I was going to say, you must have been stoked when this role came up at Ben & Jerry's, right? It's a slam dunk.
It was sometimes when you apply for jobs, you get really excited and you try to temper yourself. I've always loved Ben & Jerry's, what they stand for, not just what they put into their ice cream in the right way, it's the additional aspects that they contribute to, a lot of below the line hard work. But I'd made a conscious decision to move away from fitness. Didn't want to be that fitness guy that people seem to think, even though you're running, multi-million dollars worth of revenue coming through, multifaceted business, thousands of staff, and then you still think you go to work in shorts and a singlet.
Yeah.
But I wanted to step out there and challenge myself, and got into food retail, and then into the opportunity with Ben & Jerry's. So it was I managed to apply at the right time, come through a little bit of cultural change, and set a brilliant team up with some great franchisees. And yeah, it was one of those moments you have butterflies. Normally I'm pretty nonchalant going to interviews and quite casual, confident in my approach. But this is one of the ones where you wake up thinking about it, and you're nervous through it, sweaty, and have to keep some deodorant on. After the interview, you're just so passionate about getting it because you can see where you can take this. And this was one of those opportunities. I'm really pleased that fell my way.
Yeah, it's hard because I always say to try and detach from the outcome and just go in and be yourself. But it's really hard when you really, really want it.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference. So so glad you got in there. So I think thinking about your current role remit as well, as the national manager, retail manager for ANZ. So you're an Englishman in Australia, in charge of growing a mass market US brand across Australia and New Zealand, which is, and it's not to say that Australia and New Zealand don't embrace American culture. It's actually quite heavily influenced by it. But I think when it comes down to an FMCG or food products level, it can be quite parochial, which is why Starbucks had such a hard time. Because particularly in Melbourne and Sydney, and I think as well in New Zealand, like coffee, everyone's got their local barista, or they want to buy a specific ice cream that was made from, the backyard of one of the locals. How have you found that dynamic in terms of trying to grow the Ben & Jerry's brand in ANZ? And has there been sort of any surprises about what Aussies and Kiwis have really loved about Ben & Jerry's? And has there been any sort of difficulties?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we've got to tread very, very carefully on. Being an Englishman, there's a guy called Bert who's in charge of the brand side as well. So he's a Dutchman driving an American brand in Australia and New Zealand. You've got to be extra careful. We've always been very, very focused on what makes us local, what stands out for Australians and Kiwis. And there are different expectations. Coming from the UK, I thought I understood the relationships over here with the Americans, but Australia particularly seems to buy into Australian culture in a slightly different way than people from back in the UK. And so it's understanding what those nuances are. But we can't be an American brand who've got to grab hold of those good bits. But we do have a great brand that's trying to do the right thing, that's got history and experience and opportunity. And when I first started, there was lots of talk, do we go all out and try to be a company-run, retail brand? My life would be so much easier. Yeah. You can push things through a little bit edgier. You can take responsibility from the start all the way to the end. And franchising is extremely complicated, and especially in Australia, the laws for franchising are very, very complicated, and rightly so. But it does mean it's harder. But because it's harder, but we don't want to push away from that. Actually, the franchising, what makes us local. The person doesn't always see when you're buying a pint, yes, it's Ben & Jerry's, and yes, it can be an American, and yes, I don't need to know that we're made of something more, your fair trade or non-GMO, or what goes into the brownies or the caring dairy milk, whatever it might be. They don't know those things. And what talks are our scoopers and our scoop shops. And so the face of Ben & Jerry's becomes that local person. Whether it's the franchisee, the manager, scooper, we drive them so hard to be part of the community, to reach out, to be an important place for people to come and either switch off down in Melbourne now and just relax and be outdoors for the first time in a long time, or just to close their eyes and enjoy the ice cream and be on a beach somewhere. But we can't do that if we're just a big brand telling people what to do. And because we're not an ice cream brand, we're a social mission brand that happen to make the world's best ice cream. So we can't just come here and tell people what to do. That's just going to fail. We've got to have an appreciation. And that's why Ben & Jerry's is so conscious of having experience, local experience, and making sure every scoop shop drives their community forward as best as possible. Then from a national level, we look at who we should partner with. So we pick local partners. And for example, in Australia, we work with 350.org and the Climate Council right now to figure out what's the best way forward to get that across. So we're not the forefront. It's not the Ben & Jerry's brand we're driving. And that's the key difference. Ben & Jerry's is using its voice to support the partners locally to make the difference. Because the brand's not the important thing. We just use the power of the brand as we should to help the right people make the right change. We've been in New Zealand for 6 years or so now, and we still haven't really had a big national campaign. We don't feel we've earned the right yet to have a national campaign. We've got to do more groundwork. We've got to have more experience. We've got to understand the people better. We've got to earn the right to speak up and call out at the right time. And it's taken 40 odd years in America to do the right thing. We didn't just come out with, dismantle white supremacy overnight. That's taken decades of hard work, dedicated people focusing on trying to make systemic change. We're very junior still in ANZ in our relationship with these countries, and we've got to respect that.
Yeah, and I think it's, to your point, it's sort of trying to leverage the best of both worlds in that kind of local scenario, because, what I guess a global brand, the benefits of that is scale, the sheer scale, in terms of the resources you can invest into sustainability initiatives and research that you can then reapply at a local level. But then how do you craft, I guess, that authentic local resonance and expression that makes it congruent with the brand? Yeah.
You've got some amazing competitors across these shores, some brilliant competitors that we're jealous of at times. Yeah. Your biggest strength can be your biggest weakness, and it's great that we're a big global brand, but we're a cruise liner that's very hard to move fast on. So some people can bring out a brand new flavor overnight, and you got a brand new opportunity or something else is happening politically, and we won't be able to move that fast. And so we miss those opportunities, and it does hurt us. But we've just got to clap when those people are doing the right thing and applaud them and learn from them. But we've got our work that we're focused on doing, and we've just got to make sure that we keep driving ourselves to be good enough and driving ourselves to be a key part of people's thought process when it comes to whether it's an impulse ice cream or something that wants to change the world. But absolutely, we are seeing in ANZ particularly, the non-dairy vegan ice cream space is going really, really well compared to other countries.
Yeah, right.
If you look at our franchisees, definitely are very passionate about change and want to be part of that. And our New Zealand franchisees are another level above that again. They wouldn't be involved if we didn't have this background with focus on change, and whether it would be climate or whether it would be equal rights, or we've all got our own focus per country that we get to choose. But our franchisees wouldn't choose Ben & Jerry's if we didn't have that. There's an expectation, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, got it. So I think that, with that in mind as well, I read some articles that 2020 was meant to be a big growth year for Ben & Jerry's. And then obviously COVID happened. You'd recently opened up some pretty new big developments, like one in Burwood Bricks, which their goal is to be the most sustainable shopping centre in the world. And you're up the road from me as well in Ackland Street now too. So yeah. How has Ben & Jerry's fared during COVID, and are you back on track now?
We are working back on track. What the new track's going to be fully just yet, we've got to stay flexible with that. But it's been really hard for everybody in retail. There's no hiding from that. And I think this is one of the best times to have been part of a franchise network, and also best times franchise network that's coupled with the FMCG world. So we've had to come to the forefront to help our franchisees. You're absolutely right. We had big growth plans for 2020, as I'm sure lots of other people at the time. And 2020 slapped us around a little bit. So our focus had to go right. Who needs us the most? It's our franchisees. We want a 100% survival rate for our franchisees. And whilst I'll give particularly the Australian government a hard time for their environmental policies that don't always align, I think they've been brilliant in how they've worked through COVID, support for JobKeeper, support with the code of conduct for landlord rent policy. So putting those things in place fairly early on helped us then, right, this is what we need to do. We get the experts in the field, talk to our franchisees. We'll do everything we can do. So we'll drop the royalties, for example. We'll make sure trading terms are extended. We worked very closely to make sure we understood the profitability of the stores. Where were they? What could we do? And actually, again, all the hard work you put into picking the right partners, who we work with Ben & Jerry's, our suppliers. We've got a 3-part mission. One of them, we've got to make sure the economic mission, we're not allowed to damage our suppliers. So we can't squeeze and squeeze and then someone goes wrong either. So we have to look after them. But because we've got that great relationship, I'm really pleased they all came to the forefront and helped share in some of this pain. So touch wood so far, barring another flare up anywhere, all of our franchisees have survived. Hoyt's partners obviously go through major pain at the moment, but we're working with them. We're looking to sign another agreement with them. We want to share in this. We've been standing toe to toe with them, alongside them, to make sure, when there's no films coming out and they've got thousands of staff, they're in lockdowns. It's been horrible, but we're there. We'll make sure we'll do everything we can. And then it was a case of financially, where are we? What can we do? Then how do we adapt then to make sure we are best placed going forward? And we felt, as typical Ben & Jerry's, was our best opportunity was to be important to the community. So there's all these people in horrendous times, losing their jobs, losing loved ones. They were still going to work every day. We needed to do a thank you campaign where we could just say thank you. There was nothing above the line. We didn't put anything in the press. We didn't want to do anything that was trying to drive Ben & Jerry's at this time. It was just a case that we could use our brand to say thank you. So we gave thousands of free scoops to our franchisees to go out there, and people they thought and companies that they believed in had done a great job. And then we opened up another campaign again without being in the press, just to go out and you could pick this up and then you could give this, it was called a V-atom, so it's a bit of virality. You could give it to somebody and just add it on just to make sure that everyone just had that opportunity for happiness. And that's one of the best things about working in ice cream. You don't really eat ice cream miserably. You eat ice cream, it puts a bit of smile on your face. So we tried our best to be part of the community through there. And I think that's helped to keep, when you're helping others, you don't worry too much about yourself, and the mental health effects of this are going to come through, and hopefully our guys will have done well through it.
It's so wonderful, and you can see why, just with initiatives like that, you guys are always consistently held up as the gold star standard in terms of how businesses really can be a force for good as well as growth. Because I think that certainly as well through, being conscious about the interdependence of the people around you and your suppliers is obviously becoming a lot more topical now. Like I recently spoke with the economics of mutuality, which are basically the operating philosophy for Mars about the fact that everyone in your supply chain needs to have a mutual benefit, and it's not about squeezing people to an inch of their life until they can barely survive. A subsistence kind of mentality. So I think that it's just incredible to hear that it's still really in action at Ben & Jerry's, and it has a really meaningful impact to your partners as well as the community. And I think that you're probably one of the few brands that probably came out better because of COVID, because obviously it'd be interesting to hear as well. A lot of people, I downloaded TikTok in March as a joke and then got absolutely obsessed with it. And then what I discovered through that was because the founders of Ben & Jerry's were arrested at a Black Lives Matter protest, there was thousands and thousands of pieces of content from Gen Z people, so 18 to 24-year-olds, who had just discovered Ben & Jerry's and kind of their history of activism and all the things that you sort of do below the watermark. Like you said, you don't PR a lot of this stuff. A lot of companies do. I find it really crass, but I think it's amazing that you guys go, no, this is what's got to be done, and we're going to do it this way. We don't need anyone to know we're doing it. What matters is that we're doing it. So did you find, and there was literally creators with buckets of Ben & Jerry's, eating a scoop out of every single one, 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds going, I don't have any money, but I am supporting this brand until the day I die, because it almost provided a portal for a whole new generation to actually learn about the history of Ben & Jerry's, the fact that you don't do criminal checks when you hire people. They understood why your products are slightly more expensive than some mainstream brands, because you pay above the minimum wage. So did you find that Black Lives Matter and I guess the discovery of that and Ben & Jerry's role within that, did that have an impact on sales or any other positive, I guess, brand associations? Or was that kind of a more American kind of impact?
Oh, I think the world's certainly getting smaller. So what happens in the US, we've all been watching with trepidation the elections and how things have been going over there. And hopefully there's a quick transition done in the right way. But we certainly, we never ever measure our campaigns on sales. It's so far removed. It's purely on systemic change. And it's about working with our partners to ensure that we are focused on the right things that can move the needle, rather than what's going to help us. It's not about us in any way, shape, or form. And we've got a really engaged, phenomenal social mission team, the global team, and then they've got individuals around all the countries around the globe. And then you've got our board of directors, our independent board of directors, who, so when Unilever acquired Ben & Jerry's in 2000, part of the agreement was that Ben & Jerry's would have an independent board of directors to make sure that what goes into our ice cream and our social mission and our impact in the world was looked after and controlled by them. And they get picked by Ben & Jerry. And these guys have got very little business experience. They're all eco warriors. They're all people that live in this space of activism. And I remember talking to some of the guys that run different countries, and they said, look, we're happy to present our sales numbers, our this and that, without any background. I know it all, but what I do get scared of and what I do have to prep for days and days in advance is when we have to present to the board on our social mission, because they know everything and more. And because it's not just a case of throwing a campaign out there, it's understanding who and how and grabbing that granular detail, because it's not about Ben & Jerry's. It's about our partners. It's about our change where it needs to be. So Black Lives Matter absolutely has been a big thing, and it's been really hard for people in Ben & Jerry's in America. Some of them really align to the Black Lives Matter movement, and some of them don't. Pecan Resist was a really bold movement again, and some people liked it and some people didn't. But we're not doing there to be liked. That's the real key to this. We're doing it because we believe it's the right thing to do, and it goes through a significant amount of checks and balances to say, if we do this, will it change? Can we impact change in the right way that we're focused on? And that change is never aligned to Ben & Jerry's sales or awareness or anything, any main KPI a normal business would have. I'll give you an example. When I first started, there was a 3-day gathering at Vermont. And I was only on board for a couple of months by this stage, got to fly out to Vermont, meet the leaders of all the other countries. And normally you go to a meeting like that and it's 3 days of heavy duty PowerPoints, graphs, sales numbers, best practice sharing, away you go. And it's not great. And Jostein, who was the CEO at the time, stood up and he almost started crying, saying that we weren't having enough impact. Something had happened and we have to change our focus and have more impact in the community. I thought that's a really powerful start. He's not spoken once about sales. So out of the 3 days, we probably spoke about social mission for just over 2 of those days. And the remainder was best practice sharing of what's happening in the communities, how we can drive that. Then it was going out to make sure we were part of that and physically doing things in the community. So for something that would have cost the company a lot of money to put together, the focus wasn't just go out and get sales. The focus was go out and get impact locally for your people, with your partners, for you. But I think what's been proven is if you do those things, then absolutely you'll be at the forefront of the Gen Z's minds now coming through, because we stand for something. If you don't stand for it, then you'll fall for anything. So I think it's really, really good that it's coming through in the right way, but it's the right reasons.
Yeah, it seems like such a simple equation, but everyone has complicated it in terms of how do you garner the affinity from Gen Z? It's like, just fucking be amazing, at your core, right? Do the right thing. And I think with Ben & Jerry's, so blessed to, they started this in 1978, the year that I was born, and before the terms brand activism or brand purpose or CSR were coined. It was literally, as you said, you spent 2 days talking about social activism. It's just their way of being. And I think that's what magnetizes people. And that's what the TikTok creators were doing. That's how you get sales. You don't need to convince them about your GMO formulations or how delicious your pecan resist flavors are. They just kind of gravitate to you because your own backyard is just basically built on the foundation of integrity.
Absolutely, yeah, and it takes years to apply. We're lucky that I'm coming at the tail end of those years and years of hard work when it would have been easier to let go and just do the simple opportunity. Put something less in there. Don't be fair trade. Don't be B Corp. It was easier not to, but the impact is so great further down the line. And they've always said from the start, business has a responsibility to give back. So how do we use what we've got, which is a good brand voice, which is us being in 40 plus countries around the world? How do we use that in a really ethical way to make change for the people that need us the most? And that isn't changed through sales. But to be honest, we do need to balance it. We need to prove to the world you can have both. Because if it's not sustainable, people think we're just a charity and that's what you're going to be doing. And that's not what it's about. We want to prove that businesses can do this and that can have that. And that if we could all do that, imagine where the world could be. So we're on the forefront trying to prove that on a daily basis, that it will be lopsided at times for some businesses. But if you put doing the right thing first, the results do follow.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a paradigm that needs to shift, which you guys have been doing for 40 years, is that there's a misnomer that you're either a charity and you do everything for free, or you're a soulless corporate and you earn shitloads of money. Whereas it's like, well, no, if you actually, are a business that is about doing the right thing, contributing to the community, to society, to the world, you can be a force for good as well as growth by simply developing profitable solutions that solve problems for other people, not just yourself.
100%. And it's not the fast dollar, it's the slow dollar you got to go after. It's doing it the right reasons. And if companies like Ben and Jerry's or Patagonia and a whole list of other amazing companies, if we don't stand up and call something bad out, then others won't. And I think that's really key then. That puts a lot of pressure on us to say things at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons. But we want to make sure when we do use a voice, it is guaranteed. And so it wouldn't have been an easy decision to shout out, dismantle white supremacy. I mean, it should be a bloody easy thing to say. Let's be honest. It's a nonsensical thing. Every company should be saying that's absolutely got to go. You're not allowed to have this. That's wrong on so many levels in the US. And I'm not here to talk about what's going on in the US, but it's pretty obvious from the outside in that that's the bad thing to have. But if we don't call it out, who will? And therefore it goes quiet. And then people just go back into themselves, chase the dollar. And that's a scary place to be.
No, and I think so many people are happy that a company like Ben & Jerry's exists, because you are literally the benchmark for what companies need to be moving forward. And I think, the ones that are still stroking their chins about whether or not they should do diversity and inclusion, if there's an economic benefit to it, I mean, I don't think they're going to be around in the next 5 years. So good luck to them. But I think with you guys, it's tricky, right? Because there's always going to be polarization with, topics like that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what you really want to stand for and who you're happy to lose. It's like strategic sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, obviously you touched on Unilever buying out Ben & Jerry's in 2000. The founder stepped down in 94. Like normally when you read that headline, you're like, oh shit, that's not going to end company, but obviously it has been. Like it's turning over $681 million of revenue in 2019, and I believe there's also a requirement to spend over $1 million at least on social activism every year. So how do you find balancing? It feels like that independent board does it. It's a way to kind of balance the grassroots social activism DNA that it was born with the needs of a multinational corporate agenda. Because it's really then you measure what you treasure, right? So if you're really measuring social activism and change and outcomes, then I guess that's always the efforts to drive sales are always going to be tempered by that. Would that be correct to say?
Yeah, without a doubt. There was certainly a fear, and even listening to some of the podcasts from Ben and Jerry, how I built this and others, reading the books. There was a fear when Unilever came in, this big conglomerate coming in there, and it's going to be, right, actually, let's strip out all the goodness out of it. Let's just get as many sales as we can and stand for something that Ben and Jerry's has fought against their whole lives. And I think that's definitely, one of the cleverest things they've ever done is putting that board of directors in there. There are times that Unilever will challenge us for good reason to think things differently, and we'll disagree. And if it gets down to, we can pick up the phone to the board of directors, and the board of directors can look at that and say, no, you don't do that, the ice cream. Our ice cream is thick and creamy, and we don't put extra air in it. So like gelato will be tall and looks like there's loads in there, but it's the same amount, just with loads of air in. So we could do the same, and we could fill that pint with air and make some more money.
Yeah.
But we will not do that. That's not who we are. We fill it with pints, or fill our pints with all of our ingredients, love, with care, with the right things, not trying to make money. But what it has done, if you look at a company the size of Unilever, which has a lot of negatives around the plastic impact, environmental impact, but Unilever has changed dramatically. And, I wasn't there back in the times, but the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan is really at the forefront, way, way ahead of our competitors to try and make change. There's got to be something about Ben & Jerry's that's influenced that. We are doing it now. We've always had purpose in Ben & Jerry's. There isn't a brand in Unilever going forward that won't have a purpose. We've got to have purpose to give you a foundation of why you're doing this. We're not just scooping an ice cream in the scoop shops. You're scooping something that's going to change the world. And you've seen that the brands grow because of that. They have impact. And as you're absolutely right about the Gen Zs, they're all going to come through, and you can see through these core values people will post onto the wall as a wallpaper, and it won't stand for anything. But, Ben & Jerry's been doing it all the way through. So I think we've influenced Unilever, and there's been a fair few different reviews on, Harvard studies on the impact. But actually, it seems to be in a really good place that Unilever has unlocked lots of opportunities for Ben & Jerry's. And it may have been there to unlock lots of sales opportunities for Ben & Jerry's, but what it has done then has unlocked impact opportunities across the globe. Whether you're looking at the different brand values that we go to, and every single place we go to has to have a social mission and focus. That's pretty exciting. And Ben & Jerry's has managed to keep hold of what makes us Ben & Jerry's. And it's got to the point now where Unilever are like, right, how do we make it more Ben & Jerry's? What else can we do to make it? And that's brilliant. We've really influenced one of the biggest players in the world to do things in the right way, in a sustainable way outside of Ben & Jerry's, and allowed us to play exactly who we are. It's really clever. So I think it would have been at the time seen as a real scary negative. Yeah. But certainly it's worked its way out very, very well through some really strong, positive leadership.
Yeah, I guess you guys, Ben & Jerry's, would have been like the little rock star child of the group, of the brand portfolio. You're like, they're really good, a lot of people love them, and they're making a lot of money, but we're not entirely sure how we can control them.
Yeah, they're a bit unruly. Stop saying those things, stop doing those things. But we keep doing it and we keep saying it. But the rewards come because we drive change, and people love us because of who we are and what we stand for. Yeah.
And what are some of the local like ANZ success stories about how the Ben & Jerry's values have been reapplied here, like in terms of the diversity of your store owners, and any initiatives or success stories so far in the ANZ region?
We're pretty diverse. We'll take anybody. Is this the point? When we go through, we've got a pretty strict interview process. We've got some great partners to help us with that. And again, in franchising, you could just say, if you got any money, brilliant, you're in, where you go. And that's not us. We want to make sure you are aligned. Does it matter to you the environmental impact? Does it matter to you how you're working with the community? Does it matter to you what you put in the ingredients or the standards? And if it does matter to you and you want the change and you just can't quite understand how to do it, then we're in a real sweet spot. And we want to help you to get in, with Ben & Jerry's and amplify who you are and how you can do that. And we've got some really cool franchisees and staff, and we've got social mission managers, focused people in every single store. And whether it be coming in and choosing, it's important pause during COVID because of everything to do with COVID. But whether it be locally, we're supporting this or we're supporting that, people will come in there and they'll get a little ice cream stick, and they'll be put it in there. At the end of the month, we'll see who's winning. We'll go and support them locally, and that's chosen by the staff, by the whether it be a referral, and the franchisees then go and support that. And it's really important that keeps going through. On a bigger scale, though, I wanted to double down on how to make us more Australian and New Zealand, because again, I'm very conscious of being an Englishman driving an American brand. We have a thing called values-led sourcing. So everything we get, it's got to come from a values-led place. It'd be easier and cheaper for me just to buy X and get it into the store and sell for Y, but that's not what we're about. And for example, all the brownies in every packaged pint that you eat in Australia is made in a place in Yonkers, Grayston Bakery. And we basically have a bakery to give people jobs rather than give people jobs to have a bakery. So you can just put your name down on the list. Doesn't matter what your background is. You've been struggling, sleeping on the streets, whatever it is, you need to get back in, because we know that jobs give you your life back, gives you money, gives you an opportunity to be where you need to be and grow. And so if your name's next on the list, you get called up and you come, bam, you've got a job. And so if that's the way we'd like it to work, we're going to replicate that here. And I really didn't like constantly talking about what's going on in America. I'd like to say what's going on in Australia and in New Zealand. And so you'll do things like with Pure, potentially could be making our brownies and cookies in Australia. If it can't be helping people, it might just be a case of not damaging the environment. So we have had bottled water, and we had thank you water, which was amazing. I know they've just pulled out of this, but about a year and a half ago, we said we just couldn't have that plastic in our store anymore. And we looked at who was local. We found a company that we believed in, Wallaby Water, who were doing canned water, which nobody really had done at the time, coming out just north of Melbourne, which a really cool guy called Dom. And so straight away, we just pivoted out of that and we did the right thing for a local, having less negative environmental impact. But then you'll do things like liminal, support all of our t-shirts, our hats. We want to try and get from them who are fair trade, trying to give back, doing what them. I mean, super cool, organic, just one of the best companies you can talk to, so inspirational. And then you've got places like Trade School Kitchen across in New Zealand, who, we're really looking to partner with a little bit further to supply our cookies and brownies potentially over there, who help with the social change we think is probably needed. Don't get me wrong, I've got a major leadership crush on Jacinda, what she does, but there's a big gap in for some people at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, and to go from school to prison is pretty much guaranteed at times. And we want to help change that with our partners and see how to do. So we'll work with them to, right now we've got values-led hiring. We just hired our first person down in our Wellington store soon to be open Wellington store from Trade School Kitchen, which would be brilliant. That'll change that person's life if we can look after them and love them and give them the skill set they need. And hopefully there'll be more coming from there. Or the Bower, which is, we're working with a company called the Bower in Australia. They make all of our woodwork now for our advertising boards or sandwich boards. And we've just employed somebody to help values-led build our new store that's coming in Newtown. So all these things we're trying to do to be local and to have impact. And it's so easy not to do it because it's faster and cheaper. But for that person, and this is why it's really hard to get across to people, but put yourself in their shoes. I don't have the opportunity. I can't get that job. I can't earn any more money. And 2020 has also ruined so many opportunities that could have been there. We have a right to find the opportunity and give it to them. We're going to spend that money no matter what. We're going to build that store no matter what. So how can I buy that thing that's going to really impact somebody more than just the average transaction? And so hard, so complicated, takes such a long time, but to that person, it changes the world. And I think that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, and I think it makes so much sense, like listening to you talk about the complexity about how you make these decisions across partnerships and value chains, and how you kind of go after sales and with a balance of social activism. I think I read that your global head of activism, Christopher Miller, said we don't use agencies to do our brand purpose stuff. We do that ourselves because we don't see that as a marketing exercise. It's right. Just a way of being. So I think, you touched on an initiative called Pure, but with the Pure Foundation. That's been led by Matthew and his team, Beck and Petra. So how did you, given that Ben and Jerry's kind of take the responsibility for deciding what initiatives and partnerships to do rather than an advertising or a marketing agency, what about the initiative with Pure? I believe it's called Stores for Change.
Yeah, that's the next one we're working on right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about that initiative, and what about Pure made you go, this is what we've got to get behind from a Ben and Jerry's perspective?
Yeah, we've been to a couple of cafes run by Pure at a time, and I've been speaking. I always talk to the people that work there, and they were just They were just great people, shared their praise. They looked great about what they were doing. It really aligned. I was recommending people to go there, check this cafe out, talk to these people. I thought maybe I need to go and meet whoever's running this, because it really is, how can, if I was starting to believe in who and how they were. I wanted to make sure it was real, and I want to see then, if that is the case, how can then I add more value? How can I amplify this opportunity with them? And I went down to meet Matt in the CBD. And Matt's Matt. I mean, he just shares it all with you, shows what he's got, the ecosystem. And I came away from that just astounded. The amount of work and energy that have gone in to create that opportunity in that way would have been extraordinary. And it would have been so easy to not do it that way. So I was really impressed with what they had. And I went away and I spoke to a load of people internally. I said, look, we've got to do more. How can we do more? And so we were looking at potentially the brownies and cookies. If they make them for us, could they then employ more people and therefore give them a skill set, give them a job, help them through where they are? Great, we could potentially do that. I mean, that's not easy, and we're still working on that with them. And then if you think about how do we amplify it further, all they want to do is give people jobs. They've just got to earn enough money to give these people the jobs, hopefully more on top to put back into their ecosystem. So how can we do this? And our opportunities have been lessened with COVID, but one opportunity that's coming to the forefront. And again, got to give it to the government. There's some opportunities there the government are creating to get people into work, particularly some of the communities that Pure support. But if our franchisees are successful financially, one of the work streams we had is how do we break that glass ceiling and have it for the everyday person? Because I know if I was growing up, when I was growing up, and even now I can't afford a Ben & Jerry's franchise. But I know if I had that growing up, I would have worked harder than anybody else. I would have been more passionate about it, and I would have amplified that brand even greater than any of our franchisees now. So if there's plenty of people like me out there, how do I give them the opportunity? And that just coupled in then, actually, I've got these people right here with Pure. Maybe if we can overcome this barrier, this entry, and then these guys can get one in and run this, and then employ, hopefully, could be dozens or hundreds of people through this to help set them up. And so the Stores for Change is an opportunity where we can work with our partners to try and set up the best trade deals, knowing that this is trying to not make money, but to give people opportunities. And then everyone that goes into there, and it'll be a Ben & Jerry's by Pure or something on those lines, will know that ice cream tastes even greater than it already does, because you're helping every single person in there to get a skill set, to have a job, to pay for their rent and their weekly shopping, and be part of that community. And those people will grow and benefit because of this relationship. That's the sort of thing that keeps you awake at night, thinking about how can we do it? Let's get it started. So, and that just came from a desire from us to help the right people. And Matt just being the inspirational character that he is.
And I think it's very much aligned with Ben & Jerry's barn raising principle, where you don't just go in and try to save you everything. You just you work with people who are very deep and very, have incredible level of expertise in this space. So for the people that don't know Pure, they basically run employment and training pathways for what they describe as those that have fallen through the gaps of society. So whether it's refugees, asylum seekers, Indigenous community members, people with learning disabilities. And so that the plan for Stores for Change is to, I guess, be an exclusive manufacturer of cookies and cream.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to be a supplier if they can. That'll hopefully employ as many people as they can to make these, and whether we can get them qualifications or just jobs, and also the opportunity for them, for Pure, to own the store and have all these people come in there and work actually serving the ice cream, serving coffee, making money in the local community, having impact. It makes so much sense. It's really exciting.
So cool. And I think that with people like you and Matt, you just are the way you are because you're humble, you're amazing, you're good-hearted, you just get on with it. Like you doing what you're doing with Stores for Change and all the other things that you're working on with Ben & Jerry's is just your way of being. But I think, for so many people, that probably don't have that, I guess. Not that they're shit people, but they probably are a little bit more guarded in terms of, how they can champion initiatives like this. Do you have any advice from, I guess, your experience for doing this for so many years and on working like initiatives, like stores for change, about the benefits of actually trying to, and you called it the slow dollar, pursuing the slow dollar and doing things that are outside, I guess, what would normally be considered business as usual? Because, I mean, something like stores for change, so easy to put in a too hard basket. There's so much complexity around it, and philanthropy is not easy, like, to do. Like, you've got to really take a lot of time to understand, I guess, the impact you're trying to have by understanding the issues and the people surrounding the issues. So is there sort of any learnings that you've gained over your career and your experience with these initiatives for people that are kind of got that niggling feeling that they want to do it, but are worried that it might be too hard or too difficult?
Yeah, I think that it's always going to be too difficult.
Yeah.
And so you let good perfection be the enemy of good. We can still be better. One step is better. And we've got all the different, we go back to all the inspirational quotes of throwing a starfish back in the sea one at a time. It's all out there. But the reality is not just about how it changes you that one step forward, but how it changes for other people. And if you can't afford to buy fair trade, I do understand. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I had to fight for every opportunity that my family and I have got now, and we're in a privileged position. And we had a meeting, an interview with Tony's Chocolonely, which is a Dutch chocolate brand who is about breaking slavery in the cocoa trade. Phenomenal. I mean, some of the nicest tasting chocolate you'll ever have. They don't spend money above the line. They just drive. Stop buying non-fair trade chocolate. Just get it out. Stop buying slavery. And you can't buy a bike that is stolen in the street, but you can go and buy chocolate that has been stolen from somebody. And I was like, this is really straightforward, but how do you translate that out? And he said something that really resonated with me, and particularly coming from where we all come from now, we're probably in the top 1%, 2%, 3% earners, 5% earners in the world. That means you've got a responsibility for that other 95% of people to help them be better. So what are you doing for 95% of your time? What are you doing to help those other people out? Because if you don't help others out, the world goes in a very Donald Trump way and it becomes very, very insular. And that scares me a lot. We've got young kids now that I want to grow up, be good people, have impact. So if your first thought is, how can I set other people up for success? You're going to go further in your life. That's as simple as that. But if you are fearful and you don't know what to do, and you keep thinking, well, I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, you don't have to do it all. You can just do one thing, just be 1% better. That's all it is. And if we can all start to do that, the world becomes quite easy and quite simple. But I was talking to another brand who was saying, how do we get into this? Do we have to go fully B Corp? Do we have to do this? Should we do that? I thought, but you're never going to do that. You're never going to get that tomorrow. But you've just got to be better than you were yesterday. And I think if every brand can use their voice, if every person can have that a little bit of an impact, don't stop because it's scary. Don't stop because it's hard. Is it the right thing to do? Have you got that integrity? And that takes a long time to build up, because I would always chase after a quick opportunity beforehand until I learned the impact of those things. So don't be afraid of those things. And then when you do it, that feeling of this is better than diving over, scoring the winning try, that feeling of watching someone's heart swell because you've given them the opportunity, that you've changed their life. You can't buy that. So it's worth the hard work. It's worth the effort.
Wow. And such an incredible, I think, shift that you can feel is happening in society. I think that there is, though, I love what you said about just being 1% better than you were the day before, because I think there is a big majority, I'm calling them the new conscious majority. They know something's up. They want to do something. They're good people. I inherently believe that most people are good, but I think there's a huge majority sitting in the middle that are just paralyzed into inaction for fear of being called out as being performative. And I think, to your point, if you just really dial it back in terms of like laddering it from a place of integrity and what is the right thing to do, and just embracing the fact that it is going to be difficult. There is no cheat sheet for doing this well, because it's going to be messy. It's going to be a slow dollar burn. It's going to involve a lot of conversations, a lot of, compromises potentially along the way, but it will be worth it in the end, because it's benefiting all of us at the end of the day. And what else is there? Net, like in terms of increasing market share or awards or whatever, that's all nice and that's all good. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to build a world for the next generation to grow up and feel that they belong and they can be happy and they can pursue a life on their terms and have access to all the opportunities to unlock their potential without being inhibited by, economic or social parameters or constructs or systemic racism.
Yeah, 100%. It's just too easy to buy that fruit comes already wrapped in plastic. It's too easy to not spend extra money on either fair trade because I haven't got extra money. It's too weak. There's so many reasons not to do it. You do find it inspirational. If you do think it's the right thing to do, if it does give you the good feeling that you've given back that to somebody else, imagine how inspirational you are being to those people. So just keep remembering it's not just about you, it's about your impact, and they're feeling it at the other end of the scale. And I think that's what gets me through. When I'm trying to talk to my kids about why that's important or why this is important, they can just roll their eyes. Or my little half sister, she's not little anymore, but she's a big half sister. But she, why are you doing this? Really, is it really worth it? And then when you see the end product, end impact, then there's that moment of enlightenment, and it's been worth it.
Well, Sean, I think you're incredible. I'm so glad people like you exist in the world, where you exist in the world, and that you're just doing these things intuitively without any want or reward apart from the fact that it's the right thing to do. I know Matt is so grateful for you. Humanity is grateful to you for doing what you're doing. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to see what else you do in ANZ with Ben & Jerry's, and I will be watching eagerly. I know it will be incredible, although you won't advertise it, so I'm going to have to go hunting for it. We'll speak to Matt about what you're doing. But I think you're incredible. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing through Ben & Jerry's and also with Matt. And thanks for being an amazing human being in your time.
No, thank you. Thank you for being so kind and giving us the opportunity to talk more about the good people.
People like you, so please stay in the game.
I'll do my best.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope you have an amazing week.
Thanks, Jen. You take care.
Thanks.
Bye.